Hello? Hello? You will hear me? We're going to start the meeting, okay? I'm going to call the meeting to order. So I'm going to ask all the people standing to please be seated. We're going to start the meeting with a Pledge of Allegiance. And I'd like someone to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Who do I see out there that can do it for us? How about Kathleen? You want to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? The flag is right here. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I hope everybody can hear me. Welcome to the Hampstead School Deliberative Session. It's now Tuesday, February 4th. We're starting a little late, but at least we started the meeting. I'd like to introduce people that are here tonight. And first of all, I'd like to go to our school board, who is sitting to my right. And we have Caitlin Parnell, the chairman of the school board, down the end. We have Karen Yusenka, the vice chairman. Jason Gerard, a member. And, I'm sorry, out of order, sorry. And David Sweeney, I got David Smith. And lastly, Jim Sweeney. Yeah. So I have you all there, I hope, at this point. And I'd like to also introduce Dr. Earl Metzler, who's over at the other table, and Jeff Dowd, the business administrator. And we also have the school lawyer here, who's there to help us if we have any issues, legal issues. There's a bunch of people here to my left, which I understand are other school people who that don't necessarily live in town, but I'm going to ask that they be allowed to speak. The rules are that no one can speak at this meeting unless they're a resident of Hampstead. And actually, no one can vote unless they're a registered voter and live in Hampstead. But I'm going to suggest that these people, if there's no objection, be allowed to speak if they have any information that we may need. So first of all, there's Mike Flynn. I don't know if he's here. Yes, executive director. And that's better than a long definition you have. Abby Tucker.
That's the
I'm
lawyer.
sorry, over
That's
here.
the lawyer.
That's okay.
I should know that, Abby. I spoke to you a little while ago. Karen Gallagher? She's not here, okay. Jeff Mackey and Nancy Lucelle. Did I butcher your name? Okay. Lucille? Lucelle, okay. And Francine Flynn, okay, down the end. Dillard Collins, who I know well, because he teaches my granddaughters. Dr. Cheney, hi, nice to meet you. And Maria Donola, she's our principal at this school. Where's Maria? There you are, Maria. And lastly, Lynn Joseph, assistant principal, who's down there, okay. Now, I'm going to go right into the warrant article in a moment, though, but I'd like to recognize at this point Dr. Metzler, who has something to say.
Great. Well, good evening, Hampstead. It's my pleasure and privilege to thank, congratulate, send our best wishes to one of Hampstead's finest. You know, public service is something that's really important to a great place to live and work. We've been blessed for over 2 decades, 21 years exactly, to have a district clerk that obviously works directly with Mr. Collins at the Central School, welcomes families, welcomes all of us. She's just been awesome. So Nancy, we wish you well. Thank you so much for your public service, so much for working for Hampstead, and on behalf of all of us, the school board, the residents, the people that work here, we love you. We're going to miss you, but we wish you well, and please stay close. All right. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me move these.
Congratulations, Nancy. I'm glad she's sitting next to me, so if I mess up, she'll always tell me what to do. So, this is the warrant article. Now we're talking about the 2020 Hampstead School District warrant article. We're obviously in Hampstead, New Hampshire. To the inhabitants of the school district town of Hampstead, New Hampshire, qualified to vote in the district. Okay, this is what's called the first session. There's two sessions. This first session is now. It's called the deliberative session, and you're notified to meet here today, which we all are, 28 School Street, Hampstead, on the 4th day of February, which is tonight. And what we're supposed to do tonight is we will have explanation, discussion, and debate of warrant articles 2 through 7. Almost all the warrant articles are going to go right on the ballot as is. There's a couple that can be amended, but we'll talk about that if that comes up. Warrant articles may be amended subject to the following limitations. A warrant article whose wording is prescribed by law shall not be amended. And there are several that are like that tonight. Warning articles that are amended shall be placed on the official ballot for a final vote on the main motion as amended. So the articles either go on the ballot as is or as amended. And actually what we're doing tonight is preparing the ballot. No warrant article shall be amended to eliminate the subject matter of the article. There's been a lot of litigation about that. What does that actually mean? But hopefully we don't have a problem with that. The second session, which is actually voting, where we have paper ballots, and that will be on Tuesday, the 10th day of March, and that will be held in this school here at the gym. Tuesday, the 10th of March, and the polls will be open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and that's where you get a chance to vote in a secret ballot. And we have I think you all, anybody here is very involved with what goes on with voting, but we have voting machines that are really secure because they're actually just adding machines. We have paper ballots. So if anything ever gets messed up, we just count the ballots. They're not tied to any electronic device that could interfere with our voting process, which is good. So the first article, election of officers. We have several officers that need to be voted in for 3-year terms, all your 3-year terms. We have school board member again, school district clerk, so someone's going to succeed Nancy at this point, and school district moderator. That's myself. So whoever signed up for that, it's going to be on the ballot. So we can't do anything about that. So that is going to go to the ballot. So hereby suggest that Article 1 forward to the March 10th ballot. Article 2. Article 2 is the operating budget. In the past, I used to move these forward, but I'm not going to do that anymore because it doesn't make sense. Every article that we have either goes on the ballot as is or as amended. So I thought there was an unnecessary procedure to tie that up. I do have a bunch of rules. I don't know if I can go over them. But I just want to let you know, I had rules that I made up for everybody, and I put them on the website, the town website, so you can look it up. I asked them to put it in the town report. The problem is the town report doesn't come out till after the deliberative session, so it's not that good. But there's a bunch of rules, and I think pretty much anybody that's here is familiar with them. I'm going to ask if anybody's going to speak. They come up to the microphone here. They ask to be identified, and they speak to the issue. And I'd ask that people would be brief and make sense. And last year we had deliberative session for the town. We had some very passionate people, and I hope that doesn't happen. It doesn't seem to happen that much here. But there were some personal insults and things like that as moderator, I won't tolerate that. That's not going to happen. We're better than that as Hampstead people. So let's go into the operating budget. Article 2. Shall the voters of the Hampstead School District raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amounts set forth on the budget posted with the warrant, for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $28,259,469, and it has a question mark. Should this article be defeated, the operating budget should be $28,597,519, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Hampstead School District or by law. Or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, Roman numeral 10, and Roman numeral, I think that's 16, to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Note, warrant Article 2 operating budget does not include appropriations proposed under any other warrant articles, and when we do the voting, it is required a majority vote. And this has been recommended by the school board with a vote of 5-0 and no one abstaining. So I'm going to ask someone from the school board, I believe Caitlin, you want to be recognized to speak to the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Looking at some of our key budget drivers this year, we have special education tuition, transportation and related services have all increased due to changing student needs. Our technology infrastructure projects are continuing in order to maintain a stable and safe network environment. We have previously deferred facilities projects at both schools. And then looking at our budgeted projected enrollments, Central School is up 24, Middle School is down 19, Pinkerton is up 7, giving us a total net gain of 12, which is what we used for developing the budget. Okay, this is showing a little bit more broken down what we were using for budgeting. Again, Central School is pre-K through 4th. We're projecting 497 students. Middle School, 5th through 8th. We are projecting 366. Pinkerton, which is 9 through 12, we're projecting 440, giving us a total district-wide enrollment for school year 2020-2021 of 1,303. Again, an increase of 12 students, which is about 1%. Staffing budget changes. Our staffing levels are projected to remain generally unchanged. There may be reassignments that occur based on the final enrollments for next year. We have a 3% increase for non-union staff. All union staff costs are based on the collective bargaining agreements. And these numbers do not include any changes to salary or benefits for HEA or HAS members. We're going to be talking about those warrant articles a little later on for the collective bargaining. So we're looking at a salary change of $92,726, which is a 0.94% increase, and a benefit change of $21,618, which is a 0.39% increase. District staffing for full-time equivalent staff will stay the same. This year we have 191.34, and that will stay the same. Just as a note, across the district, 79% of our staff have their master's degree or above. Sorry. So these are just some budget highlights that we wanted to put forward. Under regular education, and you should have the budget breakdown in your packets if anyone wants to go line by line. Regular education is an increase of $50,230. Special education increase of $507,470. Support services for students, $3,315. Support services for staff and admin, $3,350. For library media services, we have a decrease of $13,905. For the SAU, we have an increase of $25,382. Office of the Principal, we have an increase of $6,388. Operation and maintenance of plant, we have a decrease of $21,147. Transportation is decreased by $10,708. Business software, an increase of $15,812. I believe that's an increase. Support services benefits, an increase of $24,618. Building and site improvements, we have an increase of $206,000. Capital reserve and federal grants represents a decrease of $125,000. And then we have all others, a decrease of $1,439, which broken down gives us a budget increase for 2020-2021 of 2.4%, $670,000. $670,366. So as presented before, our overall budget proposed for this coming year is $28,596,469. Article 2, funding sources. You'll see here they're broken down between our current year and what's anticipated for 2020, 2021. Revenue changes just about $63,000. Our state adequate education aid is a decrease of $77,000. Our surplus changes just about $13,000. Local taxes represents about $675,000. So again, we're looking at a percent increase for this year's coming budget of 2.4%, a tax impact of 2.39%, which gives us a tax impact per $1,000 assessed property value of 42 cents. This chart is breaking down the budget. I'm not going to go through every single one, but you'll see some of our key drivers are salaries, benefits, and tuition, which we do like to note we don't have a ton of flexibility in those when we're putting together the budget. Those are set in contracts and the needs of the students. So next, looking at the default budget. Should the proposed budget be defeated, the default budget would be $28,597,519. It's a difference of $1,050 between the proposed and the default budget. Mr. Moderator, that is all I have for the budget.
Okay, does anybody else want to speak to the operating budget? Anybody else want to discuss it? If you want to discuss anything, I'm going to ask you to go to the microphone, say your name, and say where you live in Hampstead. But I don't see anybody else rising to speak. Therefore, I would suggest that Article 2, operating budget, is hereby forwarded to the Tuesday, March 10th ballot. Going to Article 3. And
Mr. Moderator,
yes,
I move that we restrict reconsideration.
is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Here's the ayes have it. Okay, so. Collective bargaining agreement. Just so people know what that motion means, it means that we can't call that article again forward at the end of the meeting. There's a problem sometimes if, say, a small group of people got together at the end of the meeting, decided they want to change the earlier vote. They wouldn't be able to do so because it's already been discussed, voted on, debated. Go ahead, Dr. Metzler.
Yeah, just in consultation with our lawyer, it seemed like the room didn't know that they were all voting on that it felt like it was just a vote at the table, and that the whole room should be voting on that.
Why don't we do it again then? Okay. Maybe maybe it wasn't clear. Could you make the motion again, Karen?
Yeah, I move that we restrict reconsideration.
Second.
Because everybody, what that means is that she's moving, we're all going to vote on it, that we can't, at the end of the meeting, decide to think about the operating budget again and talk about it again, because it will be limited discussion at that point because we voted to restrict it. So all those in favor in restricting redeliberation signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those not in favor say nay. I hear one nay is all I hear, so I guess that the ayes have it. So we just restricted reconsideration. Okay. If anybody doesn't understand what's going on with some of these procedural things, just ask. And thank you for bringing that up, Dr. Metzler. Okay. Collective bargaining agreement. Someone have a question out here? No. Collective bargaining agreement, Hampstead Education. This is the third article, and I'm just going to read it. And what's nice is Caitlin has an overhead on everything we're doing here, so she's going to, even if you don't have the warrant article in front of you, you could just read it on the screen here. I assume that this meeting is recorded by cable TV. People looking at it on the TV can see it also, which is really convenient.
Yep.
So shall the Hampstead, I'm going to read the article verbatim. Shall the Hampstead School District vote to approve the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Hampstead School Board and the Hampstead Education Association? And I had to ask prior to the meeting what that was, and that's the teachers. I thought so, that's the teachers. Which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing levels over the amount paid in the prior fiscal year. And it talks about cost distribution in 3 years, and it's printed up there. I don't know if I have to actually read it, but you can see what those increases are. 222,000 and some change, 221,000 some change in year 2, 224,000 and some change in year 3. The article goes on to further state, and further to raise and appropriate the sum of $222,056 for 2020-21 fiscal year, such sum representing the additional costs attributable to the increase in salaries and fringe benefits required by the new agreement over those that would be paid at current staffing levels. Majority vote required. Recommended by school board 5-0. Nobody abstained. And this is an article that can't be amended because it's already been negotiated between the two parties, the school board and the Teachers Association. So we can talk about it, but we can't do it, we can't amend it at all. It's going on the ballot no matter what we do. So does anybody want to talk about this? Article 3, the collective bargaining agreement with the Hampstead Education Association.
I don't believe the board has anything.
So, okay, so I guess that's, at this point, I don't see anybody rising to talk about Article 3. So Article 3 is hereby forwarded to the March 10th secret ballot on Tuesday, March 10th in this school from 8 a.m. to 8 a.m. Next article, Article 4.
Mr. Moderator, I move to restrict reconsideration on Article 3.
Okay, so.
Second.
Karen has moved to strict reconsideration, and is a second. And you got that down, Nancy? And so we'll have a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. I see one hand, you didn't say nay, but I'll assume that you were saying nay. So certainly a majority voting yes. So that motion passes to restrict reconsideration for later on. Article 4, collective bargaining agreement, Hampstead's Association of School Staff. And the article states, and again, it's up here on the board, or the screen, whatever it is. So the Hampstead School District vote to approve the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Hampstead School Board and the Hampstead Association of School Staff, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing levels over the amount paid in the prior fiscal year. And then it has a chart here for 3 years with cost distribution. Year 1, $65,435. Year 2, $55,841. Year 3, $55,841. And the article goes on to state, and further to raise and appropriate the sum of $65,435 for the 2020-21 fiscal year, which sums representing the additional costs attributed to the increase in salaries and fringe benefits required by the new agreement over those that would be paid at current staffing levels. Again, this is a vote that has majority vote required, and this is recommended by the school board, 5-0-0, so none opposed and nobody abstained. So does somebody want to talk about the collective bargaining agreement between the Hampstead School Board and the school staff? No questions? No one wants to rise to talk about it? Hearing nobody at this point, I will hereby move the Article 4, collective bargaining agreement between Hampstead School Association and the staff to the secret ballot scheduled in this school Tuesday, the 10th of March.
Mr. Moderator, I move to restrict reconsideration of Article 4.
Is there a second?
Second.
Do people understand what they're voting on? We've done it before, so hopefully they do. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. One nay. Okay, so the ayes certainly have it. Okay, we're going to move on now to Article 5. Authorization for special meetings on cost items. So the Hampstead School District, if Article 3 or Article 4 is defeated, authorize the Hampstead School Board to call a special meeting at its option to address Article 3 and/or Article 4 cost item only. Majority vote required. And then there's a parentheses in here. Without this article, the district would have to petition the Superior Court for special school district meeting. This saves the school district the expense of attorney fees and court costs. And then period, end of parentheses. This is recommended by the school board 5 to 0 to 0. Again, unanimous with no abstaining. Anybody want to speak to Article 5, authorization for special meetings on cost items? I don't see anybody raising their hands, so, and no one wants to speak to this. This is a common sense article. So Article 5, I would suggest, without anybody wanting to talk about it, is hereby forwarded to the March ballot. Again, that's on March 10th, Tuesday. Next
Mr.
article.
Moderator,
Oh, yes.
I move to restrict reconsideration. Thank you.
Anyone want to second that? You got who did that, Nancy? Okay. Everybody understand the motion? The motion is to redistrict reconsideration on Article 5. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Again, the ayes have it. I'm going to go on to the next article, which is Article 6. Article 6 is the Capital Reserve Fund. And it says as follows: shall the voters of the Hampstead School District raise and appropriate the sum of $400,000 to be placed in the school renovation, reconstruction, and capital improvement capital reserve fund established in 2006, with such amount to be transferred from the June 30th, 2020 unassigned fund balance, parentheses, surplus, in excess of $150,000. Majority vote required. It says parentheses, the first $150,000 of surplus shall be returned to the taxpayers. The next $400,000 of the surplus will be placed in the capital reserve fund. Any additional surplus will be returned to the taxpayers. The funds from this article came from the 2019-2020 school budget surplus, not from additional taxes. And this looks like this was a split vote. Recommended by the school board 4, 1 opposed, and no abstentions. So does anybody want to address the capital reserve fund? Okay, I saw Jason first, so Jason, will you come up to the microphone and you'll be next, Joe, okay? You come up to this microphone, just say your name, where you live, although I think we all know you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Jason Cipriano, I live on Lower Lane. I rise to discuss Article 6, Capital Reserve, and more along the lines of the formulation of Article 6. As I understand it, the deliberation that the board went through in order to put together Article 6 and not put forward what was formerly Article 2 on the warrant, the renovation and repairs warrant article that has been on the ballot for 6 years. Mr. Moderator, over the better part of the last decade, the school board, along with community activists, have promoted the need for renovation and repairs, primarily at our central school, in order to address building deficiencies, including the lack of fire suppression and undersized classrooms, along with safety and security, additional safety and security upgrades. Unfortunately, the board elected this year not to pursue it, and thereby denied the majority of voters who have, on multiple occasions, voted in favor of Article 2 and seen fit to support the renovation projects. I understand that they've made adjustments to the capital reserve, this article, in order to support some activities. And I also understand that the board, that there was some discussion regarding elements like state building aid. My concern with that, Mr. Moderator, is that among other things, as you probably know, state building aid has been on a moratorium since 2011. There's currently a backlog of about $650 million, an estimated backlog, $650 million prior to anything that Hampstead might do. Also, as you probably know, Mr. Moderator, state building aid is directed on a equalized valuation per pupil basis. And as you may or may not know, according to the DRA, Hampstead is ranked 36th out of more than 250 communities in New Hampshire that they track, meaning the likelihood of Hampstead getting state building aid, even when the moratorium is lifted, is extremely small. So to withhold a project based on an expectation of aid coming to one of the most affluent communities in the state, according to the DRA, is highly unlikely. At the same time, the issues in the central school remain unaddressed. Each year that goes by, there continues to be no sprinkler system in our elementary school. Each year that goes by, the classrooms in our elementary school continue to fail to meet the state minimum size standards. And we continue to have to address safety and security, including access at that school. Mr. Moderator, I rose with regard to Article 6 because Article 6 was adjusted to account for the lack of Article 2 on the warrant article. And I strongly encourage the school board, albeit too late this year, to reconsider these actions and put forward an article, as I said, that has on multiple occasions been supported by the majority of voters in this town. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Jason. Mr. Guthrie, I saw you raise your hand earlier. You recognize to speak to Article 6, Capital Reserve Fund.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and Jason, pretty hard to follow that pitch, and I hardly agree. But anyway, I think everybody's agreed that you allowed one dumb question, so I have one. If in the article it says raise and appropriate $400,000, and yet the money is coming out of surplus, is that the right form that we should be doing? Do we have to raise and appropriate amount of money that is actually going to be out of surplus?
Anybody on the school board want to answer that? Oh, the business manager.
Yes, Mr. Moderator, thank you.
You recognize to speak, Mr. Dow.
Thank you. It's a statutory, I wouldn't say a statutory form, it's a form that the state has preferred that we use. And although we don't raise and appropriate those funds per se, because they've already been raised and appropriated, bear in mind those are funds that are not going back to the taxpayers in the subsequent year. And therefore, we'll have to raise and appropriate those funds in that year for that next year's budget, subsequent year budget.
I told you it was a dumb question, but the other comment I have is, or question I have is, if this article fails, what happens to all the surplus? Does it go back to the town to decrease taxes? Or just what happens to that $400,000 if this article is not passed?
No, it wouldn't necessarily go back to the town. It would go back to the town after, if it still remains after the school board makes their election for fund balance retention, which is an amount that is held by the school board that is not considered funds that are appropriated, that can be used in a subsequent budget year if, and it's only good for 1 year, if there is an emergency and there's a certain procedure that the school board would go through to utilize those funds. But anything remaining after that would be returned to the taxpayers.
Mr. Moderator, another question if I can.
Go ahead, John.
I thought I only had one dumb question, but maybe I got more than one. But isn't it customary that this kind of surplus is normally returned to the town to defray the taxes? And in fact, in the real world, if this does not pass, that $400,000 has an opportunity to be returned to the town to decrease taxes.
Correct. It's a reduction in next year's
Thank you.
bill from the school district.
Anybody else want to address the Article 6 Capital Reserve Fund, $400,000 to be placed in the Capital Reserve Fund? You recognize to speak, sir.
Wayne Dinsmore, East Road. I do understand the capital reserve. However, I think at $400,000, that's almost another 1.5% or somewhere in that vicinity towards the increase that's already 2.4, 2.7. I would really simply just make a motion to reduce that number back down to $150,000.
Okay, so you're making a motion to amend Article 6. Can you do that in writing, sir? And sign it so I can give it to the clerk and then we'll vote on it? Is there a second?
Pen here, too.
Needs a hard service to run? Is there a second of the, well, let me get this done. I would hope someone procedurally just second it so that we can
Mr. Moderator?
get the meeting to move along.
No.
Yes?
He doesn't have a second. He doesn't need to write it down.
Well, okay, but what I just want to, what I've asked as part of my rules is anybody makes an amendment, the way I suggested in the past, must be presented to the moderator in writing and signed by the proponent. I just want it for the record so we know what happened at the meeting in case we have a question, that's all.
Good point.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes?
Can I speak to why the board decided to do this, voted to do this?
Certainly, but we should do one motion at a time, for sure. Is that part of your,
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
tell you the truth, I'm sort of in a quandary if there's not a second here, because I've never had this happen before. Although I do think if there's not a second, there's a chance that this motion will be defeated if no one's going to vote for it, if no one's going to second it. I'm sorry, Ms. Lawyer.
Yes, I'd ask for a second again. He
Okay.
can still write it. I'd ask for a second. If there's no second, there's no need for Caitlin to discuss.
Okay. I guess it's not properly on the floor if it's not seconded. Joe Guthrie.
As a courtesy to the speaker, with the small universe we have here, there's so few people here, I second the motion.
Okay, so the motion is second, let me read it, okay? And then we got to vote on it, okay? And then, Caitlin, if you want to be recognized after I read the motion, you certainly may be. And this is a motion, this is what we can do, we can amend certain warrant articles. Motion to change capital reserve account to $150,000, and it's signed, I can't read your writing, sir. Wayne, what did you get, I get it for,
It's Wayne Dinsmore.
Changing the 400 to 150, so the first
motion to change
150
capital
goes,
reserve
first 100
amount to $150,000.
It's not legally written that. It needs to be written exactly the way that the warrant, the article is written right now, with the exception of the dollar amount.
Okay,
The motion, the amendment that he wrote is not legally cannot be put on that warrant.
well, then I don't want to vote on it, if it's a legal amendment.
Want to
So-
give him the 5 more minutes to,
Yeah, what?
it needs to be written exactly the same way, but if he's going to change the 400,000 to 150, then that's the only thing that can change in this
Give him
amendment.
this.
It's Wayne, right?
Let him cross it out and he can sign it.
Jeff, that would be the easy thing to do.
Just do,
Why don't you sit down, take your time, do you have a copy? of the
Wayne
warrant
to do
article?
that.
Wayne,
Can he take this
Wayne.
page, cross it out,
If you want-
sign it?
Here.
Here's a copy of the memo you just did.
wait, somebody go hand it to him.
He's doing.
Yes, it's that, it's that.
Yeah, I think.
Which way the
one?
wind is
Yes,
blowing with
go
this.
ahead, yeah.
They tell me at the moderator's workshop that I go to, we
Sign
shouldn't
it?
follow Robert's Rules of Order. Robert's Rules of Order are like 700 pages long. I don't want to go in that, so we have what's called moderator's Rules of Order. Is that legally, did you look at it?
Yeah, it's the exact same thing. He just changed the dollar amount, and that's fine.
Okay, so I'm going to give this to you, Nancy. Let me read this now. This says, and I want to read it so everybody knows what we're voting on. So the voters of the Hampstead School District raise and appropriate up to $150,000 to be placed in the school renovation, construction, and capital improvement capital reserve fund established 2006, with the amount to be transferred from June 30th, 2020, unassigned fund balance, and the balance of the amendments are all the same, as previously written, unless someone wants me to read that. And there's a second by Joe Guthrie. Okay, is there any discussion on the amendment at this point? Go ahead, Caitlin.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I do want to just talk briefly about how the board came to the decision to put this article forward. There was a lot of discussion this year, addressing also what Mr. Cipriano brought up about not having Article 2 on the ballot. We went through a lot of discussions, we went through a lot of meetings with both the board, our administrators, and our construction teams, and to make a long story short, we didn't feel it was the right path this year. I can say that everyone on this board has every interest and is fully behind the needs of Central School, and that they need to be addressed and they need to be solved. We felt next year is a better opportunity. Yes, building aid is a lower chance, but it's better than no chance, and that's what we currently have. So when we were considering capital reserve, we wanted to have enough in capital reserve that we could potentially fund a full phase of the project at Central School without having to ask the taxpayers for anything additional. So this could be used for that. It would be dependent on the board at that time to make that decision, but looking at this, we came to 400,000 because it could potentially fund either a whole section at Central School or could potentially also be used for some of the other large projects that we have coming down the road at middle school. So that was the reasoning for putting forward 400,000 this year.
Okay, does anybody else want to discuss, we're talking about the amendment now. Okay, I don't see anybody rising to discuss the amendment, so we're going to vote on the amendment itself. So, I think you've already heard the motion. All it does is change the amount in the article from 400,000 to 150, and it's up there on the board. You can just see, just change that one amount from 400,000 to 150. The rest remains the same. So ready to vote? All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Those opposed say nay.
Nay.
The nays have it up here. Okay, so the amendment is defeated. So now we're back to the capital reserve fund as is. Does anybody else have anything else they want to discuss about the capital reserve fund?
Say, ooh, that's a lot cheaper than
Seeing no one to, Karen, I know you want to do a motion to reconsider.
Yeah, and we move to restrict reconsideration of Article 6, capital reserve.
Nope.
You haven't voted on it. You can do that for the amendment, but you haven't.
Oh,
I
for the
thought he
amendment.
just asked for it.
Maybe,
I think that you should probably.
maybe we should redistrict, okay, you're right. Maybe we should,
For the
I'm going to
amendment.
give you the rules of procedure that I prepared too. But, hold on,
Move to restrict the amendment.
I agree with that, I agree with that. I'm going to give you this up front. Might help you a little bit. So, council has brought up a suggestion that we should redistrict both on the amendment and then on the main article. So let's look at we had a vote, so someone could bring it up, a vote at the end of the meeting and say, we want to revote. So I guess, Karen, your motion is to redistrict, restrict
amendment.
consideration on the amendment itself.
Correct.
Okay, you put that forward, and someone seconds that?
Second.
The second. Okay, we ready to vote? All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Okay, well, that's overwhelmingly to redistrict, to restrict reconsideration. Next thing we have to do is go back to the capital reserve fund as is. Procedurally, council, that makes sense? Thank you. So let's hear anybody that wants to talk about Article 6 as is at this point. Seeing no one rising to talk, Article 6 as is, not amended, is hereby forwarded to the March secret ballot. Okay. And now this is the last item.
Wait, we move to restrict reconsideration of
Okay.
Article 6.
We have a motion to, okay, to limit reconsideration. And there's a second. Does everybody know, we're going to vote on this. Everybody understand what we're voting on? This is on the capital reserve fund as is without the amendment. And we're voting to restrict reconsideration. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. The ayes have it overwhelmingly. Now we'll go on to Article 7. And Article 6 is hereby forwarded to the ballot, well, it already has been forwarded to the ballot. So Article 7, general acceptance of reports. So this is like a housekeeping type article. It says, shall Hampstead School District accept reports of agents, auditors, and committees as written in the 2019 annual report? Majority vote required, recommended by the school board, 5-0-0, so unanimously without any abstention. Anybody want to speak to general acceptance of reports? No one wants to talk? I guess not. Well, if that's the case, then Article 7 is hereby forwarded to the March 10th secret ballot, which will be held in this school from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And that's about it. I welcome a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The meeting is over.
Who made the motion? Kathleen had received the second.
Kathleen? Kathleen? Kathleen?
Second,
Kathleen?
Jason.
Who was the second on your motion?
because you didn't get anything. Oh, Jason, Saria, okay.
I don't know.